Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real tonight. Everybody wants to be unstoppable, but don't nobody want to do the little stuff. Everybody wants the blessing, but few people want the discipline. See, becoming unstoppable doesn't start with a miracle. It starts with a decision. A quiet, personal decision that says, I'm tired of starting over. And what I'm about to share with you can change your life in just 7 days, not because it's complicated, but because it's simple. See, God never made success hard. We made it hard by refusing to be consistent. You don't need 7 years. You don't need 7 degrees. You need 7 days of doing what you said you were going to do. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they're inconsistent. They quit on day 3, they doubt on day 4, and by day 5 they're back to their old habits talking about maybe next week. Let me help you. For the next 7 days you wake up with intention. You stop rolling over and negotiating with your alarm clock like it owes you something. The moment you wake up, you win your first battle. And when you win the morning, you win the day. Successful people don't wake up motivated, they wake up committed. Motivation comes and goes, but commitment shows up even when it's tired. Now listen to me closely. You must control what goes into your mind. If you wake up and the first thing you do is grab your phone and start consuming negativity, gossip, fear, and comparison, you've already lost. For 7 days, feed your mind something positive. Faith comes by hearing, and so does fear. Whatever you listen to consistently will eventually talk back to you. Another thing, keep your word to yourself. If you say you're going to read, read. If you say you're going to work out. Confidence doesn't come from winning big. Confidence comes from keeping small promises to yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you teach your mind that you can't be trusted. And when you keep that promise, you build self-respect. That's where unstoppable starts. Stop waiting on perfect conditions. Perfect conditions don't exist. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll be waiting your whole life. Do it scared. Do it tired. Do it unsure. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward while fear is talking. God can't steer a parked car. You have to move. And finally, let me say this. You don't need anyone's permission to change your life. You don't need approval. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. What you need is discipline for 7 days. Because when you prove to yourself that you can show up for a week, something shifts inside you. Your walk changes. Your talk changes. Your confidence rises. And people start asking, what happened to you? What happened is simple. You stop playing with your potential. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You decided that this time, quitting was no longer an option. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something that sounds simple, but changes everything if you really understand it. Consistency beats talent when talent gets tired. Now, I know that sounds hard to believe because we live in a world that celebrates talent. We clap for gifted people. We admire natural ability. We put talented folks on a pedestal. But let me tell you the truth life taught me the hard way. Talent without consistency is nothing but wasted potential. See, talent will open the door for you, but consistency is what keeps you in the room. I've seen people who were smarter than me, faster than me, more gifted than me, fall off because they couldn't stay committed. They showed up when they felt like it. They worked hard when they were inspired. They quit when it got uncomfortable. Meanwhile, the person who wasn't the best kept showing up every single day, and one day people started calling them lucky. Ain't nothing lucky about discipline. Talent depends on feelings. Consistency depends on decisions. And feelings change. Some days you feel motivated, some days you don't. Some days you're excited, some days you're tired. Talent will make excuses on tired days. Consistency says, I don't care how I feel. I said I was going to do this. That's the difference between people who talk about success and people who actually experience it. Let me break it down for you. Talent shines when everything is going right. Consistency shows up when everything is going wrong, when nobody is clapping, when nobody is watching, when the results aren't coming yet. That's when consistency does its best work. Most people quit in the invisible season, not because they can't do it, but because they don't see results fast enough. They don't understand that success is being built quietly while you're being tested. You don't have to be the best to be consistent. You just have to be committed. And commitment means you do it even when it's boring. See, nobody talks about the boring part of success. Repeating the same habits, practicing the same skills, fixing the same mistakes. Talent wants excitement. Consistency understands repetition. And repetition is what builds mastery. Here's the real truth. Talent gets tired. Talent gets lazy. Talent gets distracted. Talent starts believing its own hype. But consistency stays humble. Consistency stays hungry. Consistency keeps grinding even when nobody believes in you yet. And when talent stops working, consistency keeps moving forward. I learned this in my own life. I wasn't the most talented comedian. I wasn't the smoothest speaker. I wasn't the fastest rising star. But I kept showing up. I kept working when the rooms were empty. I kept believing when the money was low. And while others relied on their gifts, I relied on my work ethic. Eventually, consistency caught up and passed talent. And let me tell you something important. Consistency builds trust. People trust what shows up regularly. God trusts what shows up regularly. Opportunities flow to people who prove they can be depended on. When you're consistent, doors open because you've demonstrated reliability. You've shown that you won't quit when it gets hard. So if you're sitting there thinking you don't have what it takes, let me free you tonight. You don't need more talent. You need more consistency. You don't need to be extraordinary. You need to be dependable. Show up every day. Do the work every day. Improve a little every day. Because one day, you're going to look back and realize that while others were waiting to feel ready, you were becoming unstoppable, one consistent decision at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this clearly and slowly, because this right here can change the direction of your life. Your morning routine decides your future momentum. Before you talk to anybody, before you check your phone, before you listen to the world tell you who you are and what you can't do, you need to decide how you start your day. Because how you start is usually how you finish. Most people wake up already behind. They hit the snooze button like they're negotiating with time, and time don't negotiate with nobody. Every time you hit snooze, you're telling yourself, I don't really mean what I say. And that may not sound deep, but your mind is always listening. When you don't honor your own word in the morning, it's hard to trust yourself the rest of the day. Successful people don't wake up reacting to life. They wake up preparing for it. They take control of the first moments of the day because those moments set the tone. If the first thing you do is grab your phone, scroll through social media, check messages, and absorb negativity, comparison, and bad news, you've already let the world take the steering wheel. Now you're driving emotionally instead of intentionally. Your morning is sacred time. That's when your mind is fresh, your spirit is quiet, and your focus is sharp. What you do in that space matters more than you realize. A few minutes of reflection, prayer, gratitude, or planning can center you in a way nothing else can. You don't need hours. You just need intention. 5 focused minutes can change the way you think for the next 12 hours. Let me tell you something else. Discipline in the morning builds confidence in the afternoon. When you win the morning, you walk differently all day long. You talk differently. You think differently. You don't feel rushed. You don't feel scattered. And you don't feel defeated. You already proved to yourself that you can lead your own life instead of being dragged by it. See, people think momentum comes from big wins. That's not true. Momentum comes from small victories stacked together. Getting up when you said you would. Doing what you promised yourself you would do. Starting before you feel ready. Those small acts of discipline build internal strength. And once that strength is there, obstacles don't feel as heavy. Your morning routine also protects your mind. Life is loud. Everybody wants your attention. Everybody wants to tell you how to think, what to want, and who to be. If you don't create space in the morning to decide those things for yourself, you'll spend the rest of the day reacting instead of creating. And reactive people rarely build anything meaningful. I want you to understand this. Your morning routine is a form of self-respect. It's you saying, my goals matter. My dreams matter. My peace matters. When you wake up with purpose, you send a message to yourself that you are worth the effort. And that message, repeated daily, changes your identity. Some of you are waiting for motivation to get up early, to pray, to plan, to work on your dreams. Motivation is not coming. Discipline comes first. Motivation shows up after you move. Action creates energy. Sitting still creates doubt. The more you delay, the heavier everything feels. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. One good morning won't change your life, but 7 good mornings can shift your mindset. 30 good mornings can change your habits, and a year of good mornings can change your destiny. Stop underestimating the power of how you start. The morning is not just the beginning of your day, it's the foundation of your future. Take control of it, protect it, and use it wisely, because the life you want is built one intentional morning at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something most people don't want to hear, but everybody needs to understand. Discipline for 7 days can rewire your mindset. Not someday. Not next year. 7 focused, committed days can shift the way you think, the way you act, and the way you see yourself. The problem is not that change takes too long. The problem is people don't stay disciplined long enough to see the change start working. Your mind is trained by repetition. Whatever you do repeatedly, your mind accepts as normal. If you repeat excuses, your mind gets comfortable with quitting. If you repeat discipline, your mind starts expecting progress. That's how habits are formed, not by motivation, not by wishing. By repetition, 7 days of discipline is like telling your mind, this is the new standard now. Most people don't realize how powerful short-term discipline really is. They hear the word discipline and think punishment, suffering, or restriction. But discipline is simply choosing what you want most over what you want now. It's deciding that your future deserves more respect than your comfort. And when you do that for just 1 week, something begins to shift inside you. Let me explain it this way. On day 1, discipline feels heavy. Your mind resists. It looks for excuses. It reminds you how tired you are, how busy you are, how hard life is. On day 2, the resistance is still there, but now you've proven something to yourself. On day 3, you start realizing that the thing you feared wasn't as hard as your mind made it seem. By day 4, confidence starts sneaking in quietly. By day 5, discipline feels less like a fight, more like a routine, and by day 7, your mind starts asking, what's next? That's the rewiring process. You stop identifying as someone who quits and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. Identity changes behavior faster than motivation ever will. Once your mind accepts, this is who I am now, your actions begin to align naturally. Discipline also quiets doubt. Doubt is loud when there's no evidence. But when you show yourself proof, when you actually do the work for 7 straight days, doubt starts losing its voice. You're no longer guessing if you're capable. You've got receipts. You've got evidence. And evidence builds belief. Here's another thing discipline does. It gives you control. Most people feel out of control in their lives. Their emotions control them. Their habits control them. Their past controls them. Discipline puts you back in the driver's seat. Even if your life is messy, even if your situation hasn't changed yet, discipline reminds you that you still have power over your choices. And that alone can restore hope. Don't underestimate how much pride comes from discipline. Not ego pride, healthy pride. The kind that says, I did what I said I would do. That feeling is addictive in the best way. Once you experience it, you start wanting more of it. That's how discipline becomes self-sustaining. People think discipline limits freedom, but it actually creates it. When you're disciplined, you're not controlled by impulses. You're not controlled by moods. You're not controlled by distractions. You move with intention. And intentional people move faster because they're not constantly stopping to negotiate with themselves. 7 days of discipline won't fix your whole life, but it will change how you see yourself. And once your self-image changes, everything else starts to follow. You'll walk taller. You'll think clearer. You'll act bolder. Because now, deep down, you know something you didn't know before. You can be trusted by you. That's what rewiring looks like. Not magic, not motivation, just discipline repeated daily, long enough for your mind to accept a new truth. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share something that took me a long time to learn. What you listen to every day eventually becomes what you believe. Your ears are not just for hearing sounds. They are doors to your mind. And whatever walks through those doors consistently will take a seat in your thoughts, your decisions, and your future. most people don't realize they are being programmed. They think they're just passing time, just scrolling, just listening in the background. But your mind doesn't know the difference between entertainment and instruction. If you feed it doubt, fear, negativity, and limitations long enough, it will start repeating those same messages back to you when it's time to act. See, belief is not something you're born with. Belief is built, and it's built by repetition. That's why people who grow up hearing encouragement think differently than people who grow up hearing criticism. The voices you allow around you become the voices inside you. And if you're not careful, the loudest voice in your life will be the one telling you to quit. Let me be clear, if you listen to average, you'll live average. If you listen to broken thinking, you'll make broken decisions. If you listen to fear-based conversations, you'll hesitate when it's time to move. But if you listen to growth, faith, and discipline every single day, your mind starts expanding to match what it hears. You cannot rise above what you consistently consume. That's why some of you feel stuck even though you're working hard. You're doing the work with a poisoned mindset. You're planting good seeds in bad soil. And no matter how strong the seed is, the soil determines the outcome. Your environment speaks even when it's silent. The music you play, the conversations you entertain, the videos you watch, the people you keep close, all of it is shaping your thinking. And once your thinking is shaped, your actions follow automatically. That's why changing what you listen to can change your life faster than changing your circumstances. Here's the truth most people avoid. Sometimes you don't need a new plan, you need a new playlist. Sometimes you don't need a new strategy, you need new voices. Voices that remind you of who you are, what you're capable of, and where you're going. Because when life hits you, and the voice that speaks the loudest in your head will decide whether you push forward or pull back. Let me tell you something powerful. Faith comes by hearing, and so does fear. Confidence comes by hearing, and so does doubt. You don't wake up one day believing in yourself out of nowhere. You believe in yourself because you've been feeding your mind evidence, encouragement, and truth long enough for belief to take root. Some of you are letting people who have never built anything speak into your dreams. You're letting opinions from the cheap seats shape decisions on the field. Everybody shouldn't have access to your ears. Everybody shouldn't have a microphone in your life. You have to be selective, protective, intentional. And don't get this twisted. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing the right input while you face reality. Life is already hard. You don't need to make it harder by constantly reminding yourself of everything that could go wrong. You need reminders of what could go right if you stay disciplined. When you change what you listen to daily, you change your internal dialogue. And when your internal dialogue changes, your confidence changes. And when your confidence changes, your actions change. That's how transformation really happens. Quietly, repeatedly, intentionally. So if you want to become unstoppable, guard your ears like you guard your money. Feed your mind like you feed your body. Because the life you live tomorrow is being shaped right now by what you're listening to today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that most people completely overlook. Small habits, done daily, create unstoppable confidence. Not big speeches. Not overnight success. Not one dramatic moment. Confidence is built quietly in private through the small things you do when nobody is watching. Most people think confidence comes first and action comes second. That's backwards. Action comes first. Confidence shows up later. You don't wake up one day suddenly believing in yourself. You start believing in yourself after you've proven, over and over again, that you can be trusted with small responsibilities. Every small habit is a vote for the person you're becoming. When you make your bed, when you read a few pages, when you show up on time, when you finish what you start, you're telling yourself, I am reliable. And the mind listens. Confidence is not loud at first. It's quiet. It whispers, you handled that. You can handle the next thing too. The reason so many people struggle with self-belief is because they've been breaking promises to themselves for years. They say they'll start tomorrow. They say they'll try again Monday. They say they'll commit next month. And every time they don't follow through, they weaken their own trust. You wouldn't trust someone else who constantly breaks promises, so why would your mind trust you? Small habits fix that. They rebuild trust one action at a time. You don't need to change your whole life today. You just need to keep one small promise today, and then another tomorrow. That's how confidence is rebuilt, brick by brick. Let me explain something powerful. Big goals can be intimidating. They scare people into inaction. But small habits are manageable. They don't threaten your comfort. They don't overwhelm your mind. And because they're easy to start, they're easy to repeat. Repetition is where confidence is born. When you do small things consistently, your brain starts collecting evidence. Evidence that you show up. Evidence that you finish. Evidence that you don't quit at the first sign of discomfort. And once your brain has enough evidence, it changes the story it tells about you. Instead of saying, "You never stick with anything," it starts saying, "You're the kind of person who follows through." Confidence also changes how other people respond to you. People can feel it when you believe in yourself, not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. You speak with certainty. You move with purpose. And that comes from knowing deep down that you've done the work. Not once, but consistently. Here's another truth. Small habits reduce fear. Fear thrives in chaos and inconsistency. But when your life has structure, when your days have rhythm, fear has less room to operate. You don't panic as easily. You don't overthink as much. You trust your process because you've seen it work. And don't underestimate how powerful momentum is. One small win leads to another. One habit leads to another. Before you know it, you're doing things you once thought were impossible. Not because you suddenly became fearless, but because you became consistent. Some of you are waiting for confidence to start. I'm telling you, start first. Do the small thing. Keep your word today, then do it again tomorrow. Confidence will catch up. It always does. Unstoppable people aren't superhuman. They're just consistent with the small stuff. And over time, those small habits turn into unshakable confidence that no setback, no opinion, and no obstacle can take away. Ladies and gentlemen, let me finish this with something that separates people who dream from people who actually change their lives. Commitment to yourself is the real game changer. Not commitment to your job, not commitment to other people's expectations, not commitment to applause, but commitment to you. Most people will work harder for a boss than they will for their own future, and that's why they stay stuck. When you commit to yourself, you stop waiting for permission. You stop needing approval. You stop explaining your vision to people who can't see it. Self-commitment is a quiet agreement you make in private that says, no matter what happens, I'm not quitting on me. And that agreement changes how you move through life. The hardest part about committing to yourself is this: you don't get immediate rewards. Nobody claps when you wake up early. Nobody cheers when you turn off distractions. Nobody celebrates when you choose discipline over comfort. That's why most people don't do it. They're addicted to external validation. But real growth happens when you do the right thing, even when nobody is watching. Let me tell you something important. When you break commitment to yourself, it hurts deeper than when someone else lets you down, because now the person you're disappointed in is you. That disappointment piles up over time and turns into self-doubt, hesitation, and fear of trying again. People say they're afraid of failure, but what they're really afraid of is disappointing themselves again. Committing to yourself rebuilds your identity. Every time you honor your word, you send a message to your mind that you are dependable. That message changes how you speak, how you walk, and how you carry yourself. You don't have to announce confidence when you're committed. People can see it in how you move. Here's the truth: life will test your commitment. There will be days you're tired, days you're discouraged, days when progress feels invisible. Commitment is what carries you through those days. Motivation won't, feelings won't, inspiration won't. Commitment says, I'm showing up anyway. Self-commitment also creates boundaries. You stop saying yes to everything. You stop wasting time on distractions that don't serve your future. You start protecting your energy because now you understand that every no to nonsense is a yes to your destiny. That level of focus makes you dangerous in a good way. Most people quit on themselves slowly. They don't stop all at once. They skip one day, then another. Then they lower the standard. Commitment refuses to lower the standard. Even when you mess up, commitment says, get back up. not tomorrow. Now, and let me say this clearly, committing to yourself doesn't mean you'll never fail. It means you'll never fold. Failure is an event. Quitting is a decision. Committed people fail forward, they learn. They adjust, they keep moving. When you commit to yourself, you stop seeing obstacles as stop signs and start seeing them as tests. Tests of how serious you are about the life you say you want. And every test you pass strengthens your belief that you are capable of more. The moment you truly commit to yourself, everything changes. Your excuses lose power. Your discipline strengthens. Your confidence stabilizes. Because now, no matter what happens out there, you know one thing for sure, you have your own back. I prefer this response.